Hello everybody, welcome back. Let's have a look at Bitcoin and a bit of a look at the Dixie and dominance chart as well. So just an overview of altcoins. And sorry to all the Patreon members, I couldn't do my live stream last night. I basically had a biopsy done on my tongue, right? There's nothing to worry about. The doctor said there's probably absolutely nothing to worry about, but they just did it anyway. And I was a bit naive in thinking what they were going to do, and I ended up having a slice taken away from my tongue, and they've stuck a stitch in it. So the doctors advised me that talking for 2 hours non-stop on a live stream is probably not the best thing to do when you've just had a stitch stuck in your tongue. So sorry about that. Hopefully Saturday everything will be fine for a live stream. Anyway, this is the deal. Bitcoin having a decent reaction today. So last night closed above the 200 exponential on the daily, having a retest and a decent bounce from today, but still in a bearish situation, really. I have to say, it's still a bearish situation. We really need to start closing above these moving averages. The 10 exponential being here, which is at basically just above 43,000. 21 is 44.2, we'll call it 44,200, and the green 50 exponential and the center of the Bollinger Band is 44,600. All these areas need to be reclaimed in order for us to be bullish in the short term and long term, really. But so far holding up against this 41,000 area, which is the upper portion of the accumulation zone, middle center of the accumulation zone, lower portion of the accumulation zone, upper portion of the accumulation zone. This is where we are right now. So in theory, it's still pretty good for a weekly. The retest again was the down here of 40,500 or thereabouts, which is the 20 weekly. So the closing above there still is quite good, and if we could just get above 43,500, that would be the 21 exponential weekly moving average. That would also be very good. So this portion so far holding up quite well, and this is still pretty good. Again, this entire area is accumulation, so whether we come all the way down to the bottom, it wouldn't be good. It wouldn't be nice to see that, and it would be very concerning, but at the same time it's all still accumulation. And for anyone who's ever been in an accumulation, whether this is Bitcoin back in the olden days down here, or Bitcoin around here, or any altcoin which is in accumulation, it's choppy, it's aggressive, it's frustrating, it's testing of your patience, and there's no real way to know exactly when you're gonna come out of it. But that's what we're doing. Now, my other brief analysis would be that we're in this triangle, and we are getting closer and closer to an apex, which the apex would be the beginning of next year, February next year. The chances are that we will break out of this formation one way or another sooner than that. Normally, you would expect if you're gonna have a breakout with conviction, over 50, 60, 70%, you should be breaking out around then. If we take longer to break out, then the breakout is likely to be weaker and without as much conviction, or maybe even just a fake out, to be honest. So at the moment everything's okay. We always had October on our calendar as a potential breakout and bullish moment for crypto and Bitcoin and altcoins, right? The variable that we've been putting in, I suppose, over the last few weeks has always been based around the Dixie, right? So the dollar index, and this is something that I've been highlighting, it feels like for quite a number of weeks now, saying that this is, since back down here in August, we had a golden cross, we had a retest of it, and we're likely to go into an uptrend and a breakout of this zone, right? So this is a giant area of support, and it's quite a strong support. You see, this goes back quite a while now after the collapse in March. We brought all the way down here, and we had a fair bit of price down here. We broke out from it here, rejection from the lower zone, rejection from the upper zone, and then supports from the lower zone, rejection from the upper zone, and finally yesterday or the day before we actually started to break out. So this is something that was expected because the chart demanded more upside to this one. This isn't just wiggling around at this point. From here, I would have said that, and I have said that this is likely to lead to a higher Dixie. So the first area has already been tagged and could offer the rejection from here, which is the 200 exponential moving average on the weekly, also the upper portion of the Bollinger Band on the weekly. So there is a good chance that we get rejected from here. If not, I would think that we probably move up a little higher to 95 exactly, right? But that might not happen. This could be the rejection. Either way, I think temporarily, as of today, this could be a little bit of downside and I'm not talking massive pullback, I'm talking consolidation downside for the Dixie, which might offer, it may offer, it might not, but it could offer a little bit of relief for anything pegged in it, so commodities, stocks, and Bitcoin, right? But this isn't a downtrend. This is just a natural top from this rally. And as far as if we were to use the 4 hourly, for instance, we have a buy signal on the Ichimoku cloud around here, and we have that still in play. This is not been cancelled out yet. This is good to go still until the Chiku span touches price action, or we have the blue cross the red. This on the 4 hourly is still a decent long position, and stay into that Dixie long, which means that be prepared for further upside. It might not happen. This could be the top. This indicator never gets you the top or the bottom, but it does tell you when the trend is over. And for the moment, the trend isn't over. The trend could continue up, but this again could be the top, and the indicator, because it's lagging, hasn't told us to exit that or told us that the trend is over. So again, the 4 hourly, the daily, and I suppose the weekly on the Dixie, still looking pretty good. I mean, this is a big deal for the Dixie now. We've not touched this since last year, since June 2020. Shortly, not too long, but shortly after the March crisis. It's the first time we've touched this the 200 exponential on the weekly, and since all that time where we actually broke down from it. So it is a big deal, and this should, like I say, offer some kind of rejection. If it doesn't, we will push higher, and we'll push to 95, which would mean not necessarily more downside, but further struggle for Bitcoin and anything that's pegged to the dollar, right? So again, for Bitcoin, it is holding up relatively well. It's not in a particularly bearish situation. It would be starting to look worse if we broke down below 40,400 or thereabouts, which is the 20 weekly. On the weekly, and again, this is just a weekly chart. And, we always say we've got to wait for the week to close for make a decision on it and how we're going to play this. It was only yesterday and the days before that we were looking at the histogram, even though that's a negative tick. It's less and less and less so it's losing momentum on the weekly. This was red yesterday and it's not red anymore, so we've got to wait for these to be solidified and set in stone at the end of the week. So 1 minute past midnight UTC, and we'll see where the weekly stands by then. But it's still not looking particularly strong, I have to say. But it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to go lower. Me personally, though, I'm more than happy to wait and see. And for a few days back now, I can't remember now, but maybe 3 or 4 days ago, I took profit and had a reshuffle of my portfolio, getting rid of alts that weren't looking good, moving mostly into Bitcoin, but certainly some into fiat and Tether, ready for lower prices if they come. And if they don't come, I'll wait for stronger charts to reinvest. So I've got a hodl bag like everybody else. I've got a ledger where things go and they sit and they stay. But I do trade spot frequently, I'll be silly not to take profits and be on the back foot when we are still a bit of a 50-50 situation. Things will look a lot better when we get a rejection on the Dixie, and a rejection that leads to a downtrend. But if going back over the last few weeks, I've been saying that once we get this rejection on the Dixie, it will lead to lower Dixie in the short term. But if we look at the weekly is showing signs of continuation through next year. It may not happen. There's all sort of things that can come into to play into the Dixie that could move this chart without the chart. But if we're looking at the chart on its own, it's showing signs of recovery, and through next year, just based on the way this chart looks, it would not surprise me at all if we crept all the way back up to post-pandemic levels, back up to about 97, and maybe even breaking above there, and literally trading where the Dixie was, pre-pandemic levels, right? It's very possible and looks quite likely, given what I'm looking at now. It would take some intervention, fundamentally, to change this chart at the moment. This is the way it looks, and that would obviously that probably wouldn't be particularly good for Bitcoin. The last time the Dixie had a breakdown to these lower levels was down here, which was, lo and behold, the end of the bull market for Bitcoin, and this was the entire bear market up till around about April 2019. This is where the bull market began, and crypto had a very nice move from I suppose April to probably about June, July. Let's have a look at what the Dixie did during that period. It's no coincidence that this is where the bull market began. We started to rocket up in 2019 for Bitcoin and crypto, and this is where we found our temporary peak. It was around about here. So the correlation is very strong between Dixie and Bitcoin, and then we went into a 6-month bear market in 2019, sort of finishing around here. Bull market continued, and then obviously, the whole money printing business caused an enormous rallying in price, which in theory, thinking about the cyclical nature of how Bitcoin and crypto works, cycles are determined sometimes and most often in periods of 60-day cycles and whatever cycles, and with Bitcoin and crypto there's a 4-year cycle that's so far been relatively good to go by. But also cycles are also they're there because of human behavior, right? That's why anything exists on these charts anyway. It's all buying and selling by humans, and I suppose for some bots and things. So if we think about when does a bubble pop, it pops when it becomes overvalued. And was Bitcoin massively overvalued due to this huge rally that took place through economic reasons, didn't it, if you think about it? So maybe the cycle broke because of the enormous demise in the Dixie, because of what happened post-pandemic and all the money printing from March onwards. And so now maybe this could enter into a bear market based on the way that the Dixie is going to run. If the Dixie runs all the way up to post-pandemic levels from here, then that would be a bear market territory for Bitcoin. But it would also mean the 4-year cycle isn't as relevant anymore. But again, the 4-year cycle is relevant to an extent because of the halving, but the peak of a bull market is driven because of an overvaluation of crypto as a whole. And maybe we got to that level sooner rather than later this time round because of people like Elon Musk and Michael Saylor telling the world about Bitcoin. Everybody wanted to get involved, and maybe we created the bubble pop before it was technically due, which is what most people look at, including myself, with the 4-year cycle, because it was a model that fits and has fit so far. So you've got that to go by. It's mapped out to an extent, but again, a bubble pop is driven probably more in terms of the psychology of buyers and sellers and overvaluation of the stock, or in this case Bitcoin. So we'll have to wait and see how far this goes, and only when we get a rejection with conviction can crypto continue up. So my expectation is that we do have a small downside now based upon the Dixie consolidating, but we'll have to see if this is just another, it consolidates to a higher low and then continues up to 95, and hopefully it gets rejected in there and doesn't go up to 97, which I suppose you always have to you got to have multiple plans when you're trading, otherwise you'd be, I suppose, a bad trader. You got to think about not just one particular your preference or your bias. You do have to think about all the other things that could take place in between, and trade appropriately. So that's that, and that's that. So let's have a look at the Bitcoin dominance chart, which again it would show a change of behavior. We are trading yet again above the cloud, but for the first time on the 4-hourly chart, first time in a long time, we've reclaimed the 200 exponential. It's just a 4-hourly, by the way, but 4-hourlies lead to dailies, which lead to weeklies, which, blah, blah, blah. So when we look at this chart now, I mean, if we start closing and retesting this level here, this 200 exponential on the 4-hourly, this would show uptrend as well on the Bitcoin dominance, meaning that altcoins are going to suffer versus Bitcoin, whether that's in an up or a downtrend. Sats will be drained generally across the board. Doesn't have to happen. This is early days, but I was saying on my Telegram the other day that while I was laying in bed, because again I've had a bit of a bad week, to be honest with you. I was poorly with a stomach bug and I was unable to really look at charts, but I can still look at things to an extent. And what I saw on the Bitcoin dominance chart is that on the daily we are starting to get an uptick now on the Bollinger Band for the first time in a little while, and this looks like it wants to perhaps maybe go into an uptrend of its own. So again, Bitcoin dominance now facing up, and on the weekly we also have an uptick on the 20 weekly moving average, which again would suggest long-term continuation up. which means that if there were to be a place to be, and this is why I started to reshuffle my altcoins, really, some of my altcoins weren't doing what they were supposed to do, and I can't justify that when I look at, you know, the bigger picture, which is dollar strength and Bitcoin dominance strength. And you know, whether it's up or down for Bitcoin, you know, where would I rather be, in a underperforming weak altcoin, or just in Bitcoin in general? These are some of the reasons why I felt like it was time to reshuffle back into a much larger position with Bitcoin and some fiat and Tether. So yeah, it's still very early days, and I underestimate the Bitcoin dominance chart all the time now, because it's only since January that it's been particularly weak. Although we did get the top, and we managed to, you know, get in right at the bottom of these altcoins and made so much money from January. Now it is not as clear, because this is a multi-year support level. We have had a very good reaction from this in the past, and we have to be on guard that we're going to have another, I suppose, positive reaction on the dominance chart, moving us all the way up. So, you know, again, you know, it's about narrowing down the odds. It's not about making particular calls and saying this definitely will happen. It's about planning for the worst, and you know, hoping for the best, and playing the odds. And at the moment, the odds are in the favour of Bitcoin being the better asset to be in than alts in general. There's always going to be outliers and altcoins that outperform Bitcoin. Always, there's going to be like that. But I say it all the time when we look at altcoin versus Bitcoin charts. Right, you go back into anything. We'll just pull some up now. Right, so this is the obvious choice of something that an altcoin. This is what most altcoin charts look like. You know, sats get drained inevitably for a very long period of time, and the best place to be over a long period of time is usually going to be a Bitcoin, because Bitcoin, if you had a choice between Bitcoin and XRP here, you'd be much better off in Bitcoin. And again, this is unfair to really pick on XRP. You know, I like XRP, but from the peak of the last bull run to where we are today, if you had the choice between buying at the top of both, so that's a $20,000 Bitcoin or whatever, you know, you would be down almost 90% at today's price, right? This is the nature of altcoin charts on the long run. They don't all look like this, but most of them do, and most of them always will. Bitcoin, I'm not a Bitcoin maximalist, you know, I'm a trader. I like altcoins, you know, more than most people, I think, because that's where most of my money gets made. But we have to be realistic about what we look at here. This chart, along with many other charts, tell a story that Bitcoin is going to be the better place to be in the long term. And in times of uncertainty, and at times of low Bitcoin dominance, then I would say that it's more relevant to look at charts like this and expect the worst, rather than, you know, hoping for the best. So it might, you know, like I say, this is always my preference, a very cautious trader, and so that's just one example. Let's have a think about some of the things that have underperformed. Well, pretty much anything. Let's have a look at some of the stronger ones though recently. Let's have a look at ADA. So even at ADA, right at the top to where it is right now, you'd still be better off buying the top of Bitcoin on the last cycle than you would be ADA. Not much, but still you would be. So if you bought the absolute peak and you looked at it right now, you'd still be, you know, down 45% versus Bitcoin if you bought the peak of the last bull run on both of these assets, right? Despite ADA doing what, 200% move or more, probably 200x move, that would be, and so on and so on. Let's have a look at Ethereum. Let's see what story Ethereum tells us. Ethereum tells us a similar story. Where would you have preferred to have bought the peak? You would be better off still in Bitcoin, despite Ethereum being Ethereum. Do you know what I mean? And this goes on and on and on and on. And these are the better looking charts, right? So we can look at pretty much any altcoin chart. Let's have a look at T-Rex, for instance. That's been around for a long time. Let's have a look at what that chart looks like. And this is what they look like. Most altcoins will look like this. We've looked at the stronger ones. We've looked at some of the weaker ones like T-Rex and XRP. Got nothing against any of these altcoins, but what I'm trying to say is, if you're planning a strategy and you're hoping for the best, you do have to also have a rain check and go, right, this is the reality of these charts versus Bitcoin. And without putting a label on me, I don't want to be labeled a Bitcoin maximalist. I am a crypto trader, and I would like to be viewed upon like that. And part of trading crypto is picking the better asset based upon safety, risk and reward, And at the moment, I don't want to risk more than I'm prepared to be rewarded by. And there are signs here to suggest that maybe I would be at greater risk holding altcoins, especially underperforming ones, which I did have quite a few of those. Not every one of my trades is an absolute beast killer. Do you know what I mean? Some of them, even though the setups were good, you're still at the mercy of the market, and you're still potentially going to lose out. So I had to cull some and take profit on others. And obviously, for those who watch this channel, it's not like I'm going to give you a figure of how much I'm up, but you know that I would be pretty significantly up, as should you, really. If you've been in this market for over a year, you should pretty much be up pretty dramatically. This time last year would have been a great time to have bought Bitcoin and then alternate into altcoins in January. And if you'd just done those two things, you would be up. You'd be up. Even now, you'd be up. But yeah, there has to be a point where you have to think, right, things are changing, for better, for worse, and what is my strategy? Am I going to be a flexible trader, or am I going to stick to my convictions and listen to the people on Twitter calling for this, that, and the other, or am I going to think about this rationally and accept that we could go up and we could go down, and we don't exactly know what's going to go on right at this minute, and it's difficult to for anyone to make a very, very particularly excellent call, that nails it, absolutely. But what we can say is that there's warning signs for altcoin holders at this particular level, and for those, I still hold some altcoins, but generally speaking, we are looking at change of behavior in the Dixie, potentially a change of behavior on the dominance chart, and whether we go up or down for crypto. I would rather lose my money or my account balance in the form of Bitcoin going down than I would in some of these other altcoins. That's all I'm saying. I'm not here to scare anybody. It's the same as I was saying the other day, really. It's the same I've been saying for a little while. So this looks like the beginning, potentially the beginning of a rotation, whether that's a rotation into Bitcoin or money leaving altcoins, showing Bitcoin being the stronger asset, at least in the short term. Anyway, I don't want to scare anybody. It's not my intention. And hopefully, for the Patreon members, I'll be back on doing these live streams on Saturday. Just got to give my tongue a little bit of time to heal, right? But I don't need to worry about me. I know biopsy sounds scary, but it's not. The doctors have all said there's nothing to worry about. They're just going to do it anyway for a laugh, really. I don't know. It's nothing, but there's nothing to worry about. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you have a nice day. Stay safe and take it easy.